Welcome to Friday Fire with Dr. Keisha B. Spivey, where you discover how to live life on max in Jesus.
Thank you for tuning in today to a sermon I preach called All Stressed Out and Nowhere to Go. God bless.
Ourselves to think ourselves into a mess. Your thoughts have that much control over you. And I'm not talking about any of these things from a light perspective. I'm talking about these from personal experience. See, I know what it's like as a kid to watch the impact of depression when just about every female in your family suffered from multiple levels of depression to the point of medication. So I know what that looks like growing up. I know what that looks like on other people. I know what it looks like on me, what it feels like. Because I remember a season in my life where I struggled with depression so bad that I had gotten overweight. And I was literally hopeless. And the sad thing about this, y'all, is I was a Christian. I was a Christian, loved God. But if I was honest, I was a little bit mad with him. Because I felt I'd been dealt some raw deals. And feel like life was fair. And I sat there and I blamed everybody else outside of looking at the woman in the mirror. I blamed my genes and genetics because that's just what the family went through. I blamed Eric because when in doubt, just blame your husband. I mean, it's always the man's problem. You know, you come up with something. But either way you look at it, I was literally sitting there and I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like. And literally you're having to make decisions in these seasons on what you're going to wear and if you're going to take it and you're going to put it on. You know, I think about this one. I'm going to share this, Lisa. You know, as I was preparing this message, I thought about people in ministry, like leaders, where people don't think we go through. Because, you know, our kids don't ever get in trouble. I'm just saying, our kids don't ever make bad decisions. Not our kids, they're PKs. But what's funny, they did it right next to your kid, but I'm the heathen. What about yours? I'm just saying. Okay, bring it back in. You think about it, they were with your baby. But oh my God. Sorry, think about this. You know, those in leadership, those who've been walking with God, we're never supposed to get angry and respond in haste because that's so un-Christ-like. But the rest of y'all can cuss people out. At least you think you can. I'm just saying. You know, you think about, you know, we can't laugh at certain things because that's just unholy. The devil is a lie. You just so spiritual that can't nobody relate. We have to realize people go through, whether leadership or not, whether saved for 30 or 40 years or new saved. We've got to realize that everybody has struggles. And I believe every one of us have to make the decision on how we're going to deal with these things and how we're going to handle those things. How are we going to, when those ugly situations come at us, when life tosses us some things that we're not feeling quite fair, when the Bible tells us many are the afflictions of the righteous, but God, you know, when I think about this, one of the ladies from my doctor's office is in the Nashville campus. You know, I've had to go to the doctor more in the last 2 months over crazy stuff than I've had in the last 10 years. Doesn't even make sense. Just crazy stuff. And I'm good. Don't worry about me. We straight. But just crazy stuff. And you know why? Because as I was leaving out the doctor's office one day, it dawned on me, the enemy wants me distracted by what's going on in my body. So when I go up in Nash General, I don't lay hands on the sick and expect them to recover. He wants me so distracted that I'm fearful about what this looks like. I'm on my way to Rite Aid to get a prescription filled, but I'm going to lay hands on somebody else. He wants me worrying or fretting. But God, all of it's a distraction to keep you off of what your mind is supposed to be on. You know, he wants me worried about things I can't do nothing about. I eat right, I exercise, I pray. Jesus, this body, this temple, this is your issue. Work it out. And I could sit there and I could say this and feel some kind of way, or I could be about my Father's business and be at Nash General laying hands. Or going to the shelter, feeding somebody, or picking up somebody, taking them someplace, ministering to somebody. He wants me worried about me so I can't be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. He wants you so consumed with your life and your kids that are misbehaving and your money that's acting funny that you can't be who you're supposed to be. That's what the anxiety is coming for. The enemy wants your peace so that you are void powerless. The problem with getting all stressed up is that it takes you no place you want to go. Because anybody ever felt so overwhelmed and so stressed that you were like, the way you talk, the way you act, it literally took you out of your character. That's not even who you are. It takes you to places of hopelessness and despair, and it does a number on your body. It does a number on your mood. It does a number on your behavior because you've received it. You can't be the hands and feet of Christ if you're irritable, socially withdrawn, and addicted to coping devices. Because what happens with that? You feel condemned, and you're jeopardizing your witness. You know, worry will destroy you. It'll take you out of the presence of God, away from the promises of God, and place idols in the places that God and God alone belongs. Now I have something I want them to put on the screens for you, because if you could grab a hold of this, I think it'll change how you'll close out 2016 and how we move into 2017. Worry is believing God won't get it right. Worry is believing God won't get it right. It's birthed out of fear. And fear and faith cannot live in the same place in your heart or in your mind. One has to be served an eviction notice. And the only one who can deliver it is you. So when you're choosing worry, you're choosing fear. And you're believing that God's got this one wrong and you got this all figured out. The only person who can do anything with that is you. And this brings us back to the prescription that Paul gives us in our text today. And I want to give you a few points from it. But I want you guys to start thinking about what you're thinking about. You know, in this text, I believe that Paul gave us 5 very clear things to help us navigate and walk through this. And the first one is this, and that is to put off worry because it's a sin. I know people don't like to call sin these days, and we got cute names for it, but sin is sin is sin. When you think about the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus made it clear that worry is a lack of faith, and it means you're putting your trust into things of this world instead of him. He himself said, ye lack of faith. Ye with little lack of faith. And here's the thing, we can't excuse our worrying by saying it's only human. You know what we tell ourselves, if somebody else had this problem, they would worry too. Stop justifying it. Wrong is wrong. It is time for us to stop decorating it, stop denying it, and deal with it. Stop ignoring it. Call it what it is and address it. The second one is practice prayer with thanksgiving. Prayer is getting face to face with God. And I wish I could sit here and say when trials come and challenges come that your automatic response is thankfulness. Not always. You've got to make a decision to be intentional. Intentional, to be deliberately thankful and to deliberately approach it with faith. And sometimes it's hard. But here's what I tell you. I want to give you a couple things. When it's hard to do that, when you need to practice prayer with thanksgiving, rehearse the victories. Think of all the things God has already done for you. Think about the doors that he opened that man had shut. Think about the ways he made for you. Think about the times he bailed you out. Think about the times that you thought it was the end of the road, but God showed up and he showed out. Begin to rehearse the victories. Feel like David. Think about David before the Goliath. All he did was rehearse all the things he'd already taken out to build himself up in his faith to know that Goliath had to come down too. It's time for us to start thinking about the things that God has already done for us. Stop talking to the mountain and just complaining about it and just, oh my gosh, this thing. And remind your mountain who your God is and what God has already done and who he is and how big he is, how amazing he is, how much he loves you, and that he's a good, good father. That he's the giver of good gifts. It's time to rehearse those victories. And when you can't think of it, ask somebody that knows you and loves you, because sometimes you can get into a pit and you're struggling. You become like the little deer on the side of the river in Africa that the lion come and eat because you done isolated yourself. You need to get with somebody and say, look, I'm struggling. I'm even struggling being thankful right now. Help me. And somebody that'll look you in the face who's walked through some things with you and can tell you what God has done for you. That's not a sign of weakness, that's wisdom. That's why you got to surround yourself with people who love you, who are not going to let you have a pity party and stay there by yourself. You need to release the problem. Stop trying to understand it and figure it out. Some stuff just don't make sense, and I don't think it's going to make sense on this side of heaven. Stop trying to figure it out. Just give it to God. What is God going to do with this thing? What are the lessons he's going to teach me? How can I learn from this thing? How many people can I help? One of the greatest joys I have in my life is when God takes all of my pain, the stuff that the enemy wanted to use to shut me down and take me out, and then I'm able to turn around and then sow it into somebody else. See, I give it to God, and then I allow God to do something with it for me. But I can't do anything with it in my hands. Then you need to remember the patterns. The same God of yesterday is the God of the day, and he's the same God of tomorrow. You don't know what tomorrow holds. You don't even know what the end of the day is going to hold, but you know who holds it in his hand. His patterns don't change. People might bounce, and other situations may change, but God is the same. No matter what the report said. No matter what you think about it. No matter how you feel about it. And you got to rest on his promises. That's why it's so important that you get in the Word. Why you stay in the Word. Because only the promises that you know and that you own are the ones you can expect to manifest in your life. You've got to rest in his promises, knowing that he's all-sufficient, all-knowing, and he's an all-loving God. Not toward everybody else, but to you. You got to proclaim the peace of God. Number 3. Verse 7 says, the peace of God which surpasses all understanding shall guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. And I'm not talking about some psychological, metaphysical kind of science stuff. I'm talking about a peace that goes beyond anything that your mind can understand. Not coping techniques. I'm talking about peace that comes from a God that never faces anxiety. He wrote the end of the thing from the very beginning. He's not wondering how this showed up in your life. He's not watching the script to see how this is going to come out. When you think about this, if you are in an intimate, permanent union with Jesus, then anxiety must go through him to get to you. That's good. Somebody should have said amen. I'm going to say it for myself. I'm going to read it again. Maybe y'all missed it. Let's practice. If you are in an intimate, permanent union with Jesus, then anxiety and worry must go through him to get to you. That's better. If you are one with God and you are so full of him, that I'm not talking about the ones who check in on Sunday and do this until next week. See, by Tuesday or Wednesday, y'all just done spin out. I'm just saying, you don't like people, life is whatever, you don't even know why you go to church, Wednesday night Bible study, not a thought. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the ones who made the decision that I'm going to be in this word and this word's going to be in me. I'm talking about the one who faces every situation with the great I am. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead living on the inside of you. Knowing that with him you are unstoppable. Knowing that this is the same God that spoke and everything showed up. So here you are looking at lack instead of looking at the one that has the power to supply it all. When you are in an intimate relationship with him, stuff has to go through him to get to you. When you're feeling some kind of way or getting into your feelings, as my young people like to say, about some situation, that's the sign that you need to draw near to the God of your peace, focus on his grace, and pour out your heart to him, and the result from that is peace. Number 4, you need to protect your heart. Verse 6 tells us not to be anxious, but to pray and to make our requests known to God. This verse is giving us full permission to not sweat anything, to not worry about anything, to release everything that we've got coming at us into God's hands. Whatever is stressing you, whatever is troubling you, this verse tells us to pray about it. And check this out. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart.
I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. Join us next week, same place, same time. And until then,
may the fire on your altar never burn out.